Welcome to Adoption Side by Side podcast, because no one should have to walk the adoption journey alone. I'm Steph.
And I'm Andrea. We walk the journey together, and we want to walk it with you, if you'll have us.
Welcome to today's episode. We have mine and Alex's caseworker who helped through the home study process with us today. Her name is Kelly Newport. She is from Adoption by Choice, and we are anxious to see what she has to say about the post-placement visits for after placement has been done and you've brought your child home, how they come in and they just do almost a wellness check is how Kelly explained it to us, to make sure everybody's doing well before finalization happens with the court. So welcome, Kelly.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today.
How long have you been in the social work field? And what led you to it, and how did you become part of Adoption by Choice? I know that's a lot of questions in one, but it kind of is all one.
I guess technically the social work field in this arena, probably the last 6 or 7 years. I have a degree, a teaching degree. I taught middle school for a little while till I started having, my own children. I've worked for our parent organization, Women's Care Center, for 27 years. I was in a different division for the longest time. That division lost some funding and there were some other needs within the organization. So I got moved to help in Adoption by Choice. Our long-term director at that time was Lisa Baroner. And she was just carrying a lot by herself, doing everything. And so I was moved to help her do kind of some of the office stuff, setting up files, doing background checks on couples, just any support that I could give her so she could do, the home studies and post placements and things like that. Yeah, I just kind of followed her and shadowed her, learned from her. Around 2022, 2023, she had to step away because of some serious health concerns. We had another woman for 6 months in between her kind of stepping down and me taking over. And I've been the director of the agency for about the last 2 years. So how I actually came into it was people were saying, you're like the most natural person to fill in now. And Elisa was even saying, I think she should do it. And I had been doing HR and office management stuff for, Women's Care Center. And I thought, is this really something I want to do? It's hard work. You're on call. And I just prayed about it. And I just felt like this was something God wanted me to do. I had been doing my other job and it was fine. And even thinking about this is kind of getting boring. It's not really challenging to me. It's kind of the same thing. And even just thinking and exploring, do I want to look for another job? Just that to be challenged mentally and things like that. So I just really felt like this was something God wanted me to do. And he's really grown my faith in doing this and seeing how he shows up and works and moves in situations that I'm like, I don't know how this is going to work. But yeah.
So Kelly, as you know, with our case, we had to go through ICPC, the Interstate Compact of Placement of Children. And that was because our son was born in a different state. So can you just touch lightly on what that means, either for the home state, for Pennsylvania, or even a different state? So out there, we had to be told, yes, you are okay to leave. And then Pennsylvania had to say, okay, you're able to come home. Why that is?
So the ICPC stands for Interstate Compact on the Placement of Children. And basically it's just a legal agreement between all the states for an adoption if a child's crossing state lines. So you would have a sending state, which is where the child would be born. And then you'd have a receiving state of where the adoptive parents actually live. And so you have to get permission from each interstate in each of those states, kind of like you just said, for that child to leave. So typically it starts with gathering all the documents for the sending state. It goes to their interstate office. They review it, make sure, and then send it to the receiving state. They have to review it. Basically, the reason that they have the interstate is to make sure that a child is being placed in a safe situation, that it's good, that the child can be provided for financially. Also making sure that adoption laws are being followed in both states. It's kind of like the gist of why interstate exists. But you're right. You can't leave the sending state until they say, yeah, you can leave with the child. And you can't go back to your home state until the home state says, yep, you can bring that child into the state. And sometimes that process can be a couple days. We have seen, in the past, just, sending state, yes, receiving state, yes. And, the family can leave and go back. I've also seen it take up to a couple weeks or more. I mean, you're really kind of at their mercy of when permissions will be given.
Yeah. Right. And it doesn't help if your child's born over a major holiday or holidays. Like my child was Christmas and New Year's, so nobody worked there for a while, and then all that. And Kelly, correct me if I'm wrong. Once sending state says yes, you are allowed to go to any other state except for the receiving state.
That is my understanding too.
Okay.
I believe. I think if the sending state says you can leave, but you cannot go into your home state until the receiving state says yes, you can come.
It was funny because we never considered that part because we had 3 states. So we had Ohio, and we just stayed there to wait for our agency in Utah, and then we had Pennsylvania's permission. So we just stayed put because we were right on the border between, Ohio and PA. We just kind of sat there
Right.
And then there was us close. Sitting out in Arizona.
Yeah.
Yes, I know. I felt so bad every time you called. You're not home yet? Oh my goodness.
I know, because we told you, we were like, Kelly, we think we're coming home. And then it was like, never mind, Kelly, we'll let you know when we actually are getting home, because the process took just a little bit longer. Now that looking back on it, I fully understand why our process took longer, aside from the holiday aspect. But when in the midst of it, I was just, I wanted to get home. Like I had my baby. I wanted our family to meet our baby. But I mean, 100% understand why that's all in place. It's to protect birth mom, adoptive family, and ultimately the child, to make sure that this is all an okay placement. So thank you for answering that.
Sure.
So the number of post-placement visits will depend on the state laws that apply in the adoption, whether the state the child was born in or the home state of the agency potentially. Can you just give some examples of how many visits may be expected typically?
Yeah. So I know in Pennsylvania, it's a minimum of 3 visits. And that's typically what our agency, we typically don't do more than the 3 visits. Again, it depends on the state. I think it could also depend on the agency. Even like example, we have a couple right now who received a placement through our agency, but they kind of live too far. They live out of like our miles radius for us to do their post placements and all of that. So another agency was doing it, and they're saying, well, we've done 5. Do we need to keep doing these? And I'm like, no, you only had to do 3. So I think might even depend on the agency as well, that they might have a policy that just says we're doing post placements till finalization. I know if ICPC is involved, I think, again, maybe depending on sending, receiving states, that might be the case as well. You would have to do post placements until the finalization happens. So yeah, I think there's a few different factors, but I know like for our agency and Pennsylvania in general, it's just a minimum of 3. Okay. And we do try to spread those out somewhat, evenly across from placement to finalization as best we can.
Right. And can you just describe a little bit of what goes on in that post-placement visit? Questions you might ask, or what you're looking for with the parents, the family, the baby?
Yeah, it's just a chance for, our agency, our caseworker to connect with the family. Just ask, how's it going? How are things going? Just general start. Even more like specific, like data things. Okay, what doctor are you taking the baby to? When was the visits? Any immunizations? What were they? Any reactions? Current weights? Even to what formula is the baby on? How much are they eating? Sleeping? Just kind of those general data questions of, to prove, because those post placements do go to the court, so the court can see, you've been getting medical care for the child, you're feeding the child's doing well. And, then we even get into talking about like developmentally. Well, what are they doing developmentally? Are they rolling over? Are they sitting on their own? Any favorite toys they have? Activities they like to do? And then just general, like, what's your favorite part about parenting right now? Or what's some current struggles that maybe you're having? Talk about family support that they might have. Do you have family in the area or friends or, maybe church family that are helping you, bringing meals or, just watching the baby so you can go take a shower or something, just talking about those general support kind of things. We also talk about, if you're going back to work, what does childcare look like for your child? Family members watching the baby, are you using daycare, those kinds of things. And then I just usually try to wrap up with where we're at in the legal process and answer any questions that, that there might be, or, talk about any feelings regarding the legal process, about anything like that. So just kind of a general overlook of how are things going? How are you doing? How are you adjusting to adding this new person into your family? Yeah.
I remember our caseworker had told us that I warned her, I am not going to be as coherent as I was during our home study because I'm not going to have slept. And she said, don't even get out of your pajamas. Just, this is okay. Just relax.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
So with all that, Kelly, have you ever had, or are there resources through agencies that if you're sitting there with a family and mom or dad is talking about how maybe they're struggling a little bit with, I know bonding with the child is sometimes, I don't want to say an issue, but something that a family might say, we're not bonding as well, or I feel that I am postpartum depression in a sense. If they share that with you, are you then able to help point them in the right direction to get counseling or help they need? Or is that somewhere where you have to say, well, you need to go talk to your PCP? Like, is that a service that you're able to help get them if they need it?
Yeah, I think if I knew of the service, or, sometimes if we're visiting families in the Pittsburgh area or something, like I'm not as familiar with
Right.
what resources would be there. So that might be more like, hey, maybe you should call your doctor, or, and talk to your doctor. But if it's, in an area where I might be familiar with, especially like in the Erie area, I'd be like, hey, there's this organization. So I think, yeah, we would do our best to try and get whatever support they would need if they're struggling with bonding, or just trying to encourage them, like, hey, you know what you're going through. And some couples have recognized this, that the struggles we're having are just typical new parent, whether
right.
we birth this child naturally or we're adopted. They're just natural first time parent things. And I think some people recognize that too, and like, we're just, we're not getting a lot of sleep. Well, that's just
Yeah.
that's just the nature of having a baby. So yeah, I think we would absolutely do our best to try and guide them and get them the support and the help they would need, in their area.
Okay.
Do you have any comments on how adoptive parents can best prepare for a post-placement visit?
Yeah. I think just even having some of those number things that we talked about, like when was your last visit for the doctor, and what vaccinations did you have, if any, or, weights, and just having just kind of some of those facts ready that we would need. But then I think also to be honest, that if you really are struggling, be honest. We're not there to judge. We're just there to help you. And you never know, like, if you're saying, hey, I'm struggling with this, that caseworker may have had another family struggle with the same thing, and they could say, hey, we had a family that went through the same thing. This is what they did, and this is what helped. Maybe you want to try that. And I think even what you just spoke to about being in your pajamas, I went to a post placement. The mom showed up. I think she just got out of the shower. Her hair was wet, and she's like, I'm like, it's okay, it's all right. We're not there to judge, or we're just there to see how you're doing. And if you just got out of the shower and your hair's wet, it's okay. I had a family. I had finished their home study, and you know how in depth that is, and looking for things and background checks, and they got a kind of a surprise placement, and he's like, okay, the post placements, and are you going to be looking like the home study, because I just ripped the railings off my outside steps, and I don't know, I can't find them, whatever it was they don't make anymore, and I don't know how I'm going to fix it, or are we going to be in trouble? And I'm like, it's okay. We're just here to talk to you and see how it's going. I'm not worried about if you have a railing on your front steps. So I just think, it just try to be relaxed. Again, we're not there to try and nitpick and find problems, but we're there to help and support in any way that we can.
And then with that, are you allowed to do surprise visits, or are they all always scheduled so the family knows you're showing up?
Oh, we always do scheduled so that they know that we're showing up. We don't do surprise.
I know we get asked that when we talk about like our post placement. They were like, well, were they surprised? Like, did your caseworker just show up on a random Thursday? I was like, no, they were always scheduled visits so that Alex and I both could be there to meet with you. And I think that's maybe a misconception with other avenues where children are placed in different settings. So with adoption like this, they are always scheduled.
Right. Yeah. When you just said that I was thinking maybe that's more like the Office of Children and Youth. There's kind of situation they might just pop in, but no, ours are always scheduled.
Okay.
And that is important too, that both husband and wife are there. Because I've had, well, he can't be here, but I can. And I'm like, oh no, we really need both of you there. So you do want to schedule it when both parents would be there.
Right. And I know it wasn't for either of us the case, but do siblings need to be there as well? Like if they're at school, that's okay. You know, if there's families that have older children, how does that piece work with it?
Yeah, most of the families that if they have a child, they're younger, they're not really school age, so they've been there. But I would think if it's a child like in elementary school, I don't think they would have to be there every visit. Maybe one of the visits we would try to have them there just to, see the interaction and the family together. But I think is more important, like mom and dad are there for the visit.
So are you typically present at adoption finalizations?
Yes. Like this is one of the favorite things of the
I was going to
job.
say that has to be the best feeling to be able to see that full circle moment.
Yes. Yeah. We're typically with couples from like application all through the home study process through placement and everything. And to finally get to like the end, so to speak, where they've had this child and obviously have loved this child all this time, but now legally in the eyes of the law, there's their child. And so, yes, we obviously, if we can go in person, we go in person. I'm finding different counties are different too in Pennsylvania because like in Erie County, we typically don't testify it there, but then there's other counties where the finalization attorney's like, well, we need you to testify. And I'm like, okay, well, do you need me to come there or can we do it? And they've been gracious to, I've been able to do it by phone or by, their Zoom or whatever. But yes, we always try to be there some way, somehow, just because it's just, we want to celebrate too. Right. We want to celebrate with everybody there.
Yeah.
No, and I know with our case, since we were a different county, you Zoomed in, but you testified your piece before we even entered the courtroom. Like Kelly spoke and we weren't even in the courtroom yet. And our lawyer came and she told us that. I was expecting to see you and I was excited, like I'm going to get to see Kelly again. And she was like, she's going to testify and then she'll stay on if she wants to watch the whole process. And I think you got to watch it. I never did see you. You were on a screen somewhere. But we didn't even hear like what she had to say about us, which was fine because we knew. Like,
I mean, apparently we it was okay. Good. So.
Yeah. But like that was weird to me that we didn't get to be there to hear that piece. Yeah. But you had to do that piece for our county.
Yeah, and then I just did another county where similar, but I went first, but the couple was in the courtroom.
Yeah. So that's interesting how even within a state, the counties are working differently. It's not all cohesive.
Yeah. I don't understand it. You would think it would be kind of pretty much the same across the board. And I think maybe at the base it is, but like I know here in Erie County, if it's finalized, only the couple testifies in the court.
Okay.
But we just attend because, again, we want to celebrate.
Right. Yeah. In our court case, they did not have our caseworker come. And ours was all on Zoom aside from the courtroom because we technically finalized in Utah. So we just attended by Zoom ourselves. But they didn't have her attend at all, even by Zoom. And it was sad to us because just like you said, we wanted to celebrate. And I think that's something, we hope that our listeners can take from this is your caseworkers really do become your friends through this process. They're people that are there to cheer you on, not as Kelly's already said, not to find fault. That's not the goal. But it's to help and it's to ultimately make sure your child is in the best place.
Yeah. I was just thinking though, I mean, if you've gotten to post placement, you have already gone through background checks and application and home study. Like your caseworker or your agency are going to know you pretty well and know that you're a safe family and that you're going to love this child. And so the post placement is just more like, again, the connection of the logistics of what's happening, what's the baby eating, what's the doctor appointments, and then just how can we support you in anything.
Yeah. So that kind of leads into the next question of both sides. Have you ever been doing post-placement visits and you feel that the child is not in a safe setting? And then have there ever been situations where the bio family has called your specific agency, or like in our case, maybe called and said, we're in our consent period, we would like to take the child back and raise them ourselves, which we all have said countless times. Bio families have that right, unless stuff has been signed and, termination and all that has happened. Has any of that ever happened? And how do you work through that with the family that now is possibly bonded with that child?
Yeah. So the first question about post placement, I've not, in my experience, I have not gone to a post placement and thought, oh my gosh, this is terrible. These people shouldn't have the baby. Again, we've been through with each other through the whole process. So, if we're getting to the placement and I have concerns, that's a big deal. I would think.
Right.
That's why we have that background process, and we get references. I recently had a family where a reference was not good, and I had to turn them down. But I couldn't necessarily say, well, your reference said da 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 da, because that's confidential. So if we're getting through all that and we're getting to the post placement visit, again, it's just mostly the logistics and support and talking through process. So I've not been concerned with an adoptive family having a child. Now it does happen, because people are people and we live in a broken world. In Pennsylvania, bio parents have 30 days to revoke their consent. And it has happened that a bio mom calls and says, you know what, I've changed my mind and I want a parent. And, there is a process that they have to go through. They have to give their revocation to us in writing. Then they have to take it to the courthouse, to an office there. It's very difficult to do because I've been involved in some where we're very close to the end of the 30 days, and then that baby's been in their house for a month. We've even had a case this year where it wasn't even the mom revoking, it was the bio dad who lived in another state, who we were told wouldn't do anything, his home life isn't good. Well, he ended up doing something, and the judge ended up taking the baby out of our care and giving it to him. So that was very difficult because that was a legal thing. And it was really, really out of our hands, and that was difficult. So it just, we do our best to support a couple, be there for them, cry with them, follow up with them in the days to come. Thankfully, any of our couples that have ever had that, they were like, yeah, we want to stay in, keep profiling us, so, they're not totally like turned off and be like, no, I'm not doing this ever again. And I had mentioned we just had a revocation within this last week. And that was a little bit different situation because the girl, she's younger and in the hospital, she just wasn't sure. And so we're like, you know what, you're not sure enough. Take the baby home. And so she did. And we said, if you get home and it doesn't feel right, this parenting thing just doesn't seem right, we're here for you, call us. Well, 2 weeks later, she reached out and said, I want to meet the couple. She did choose a couple. We didn't obviously call them, but she's like, I would like to meet them. Would they meet? And we're like, well, I can find out. And they agreed. So we thought we were just having a meeting. So everybody came to our office. We were just having the meeting, get to know. And she showed up with some family members, the baby, and all the baby stuff. And the couple actually left with the baby that day. Wow. And we were all, whoa, wait, what's happening? And then 2 or 3 weeks go by and she contacted and said, no, I think I do want a parent. So I think the couple in this were kind of sensed that maybe that was the case. And they're very deep faith. So I think they were going in with the attitude of, we're going to take care of this baby and love this baby as long as we have her. And if we have to give her back, we will give her back. Even if it hurts us, we will do that. So this one, I don't know, it was hurtful. I felt for the family. So yeah. So in other instances, it's been very hard and very heart-wrenching. We've had to go to the family's house. Like the one we had, the birth mother revoked on the very last day she could revoke. Good news, that particular family, they got another placement that was so secure and the relationship that they built with their bio parents, it was like the conversations they had in the hospital were like they'd been friends forever.
That's
and so
wonderful.
it was very
Those are
good
the
and very
beautiful
stable.
stories.
And so their situation got redeemed. But I know they
Good.
always think about
Absolutely.
Where can prospective Pennsylvania adoptive families go to read more about your agency and your services?
so they can go to our website. It's adoptionbychoice.org. It's all lowercase, all one word. You can get more information about who we are, what we provide, or if somebody has like a specific question maybe that they can't find on the website, they can contact me. My email is knewport@wccerie.org.
Kelly, thank you so much. We so appreciate
Sure.
this, and
Sure.
being able to remind everyone that we love our caseworkers. They are
Part of the
part
family.
of the, you truly do become part of that family, that community you build in the adoption process.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, let's pray. God, thank you so much for bringing us together today. Thank you for Kelly, for her willingness to share her heart for adoption, for all of the families' lives she has touched throughout her years in this field. We appreciate her sharing with us today. We hope that our listeners can take away that you can take a breath, that, the process is long, it's scary, but hopefully this helped make it a little bit less intimidating. And God, just pray that you bless our day, and in Jesus' name, amen. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. You can find us on any major podcast platform and on Instagram at Adoption Side by Side to listen to more episodes and follow along in our personal adoption journeys as they change.